Welcome back to the archives. Today's file comes with a warning label, not for what's inside it, but for what happens every single time somebody opens it. Because the internet has spent well over a decade fighting about one fictional girl, not a real person. A cartoon troll with a spider theme and a typing problem. And the fight has never once been settled. Her name is Vriska. And by the end of this, you'll understand why the arguing never stops, and why maybe it was never meant to. A quick disclaimer. This video discusses Homestuck, a work of fiction containing depictions of violence, death, manipulation, and abuse. Analyzing a character is not the same as endorsing what they do, and to be very clear up front, this video is not here to tell you Vriska did nothing wrong. She did a great deal wrong. What's interesting is something else entirely. Let's get into it. First, let's clear the biggest hurdle. You do not need to have read Homestuck to follow this video. In fact, most people who tried to read Homestuck didn't finish it, so you're in good company. Let me get you up to speed in 3 minutes. Homestuck is an online story created by a single author, Andrew Hussey, that ran from 2009 to 2016. People call it a webcomic, and that's the closest label, but it's not really just a comic. It started as a series of simple drawings with a caption underneath, styled like an old text adventure game, each page a single image, with a command at the bottom telling the story where to go next. And then, over 7 years, it mutated. It grew instant message chat logs where huge chunks of the story actually happen. It grew animated sequences. It grew fully animated, musical set pieces set to an original soundtrack that fans still worship. It even grew little playable browser games embedded inside the story itself. Homestuck is what happens when a comic refuses to stay a comic. And it is enormous. Over 8,000 pages. Around 800,000 words, longer than most book series you've ever finished. That scale is a huge part of why it's beloved and why it's infamous. Getting through Homestuck became a rite of passage. A dare. So what's it actually about? It starts small. 4 kids, friends who only know each other over the internet, install the beta of an upcoming computer game called Spurb. Except installing the game accidentally triggers the end of the world. As meteors rain down on Earth, the game turns out to be the only thing keeping them alive, pulling them into a strange other dimension where the real goal slowly reveals itself, to play the game all the way through and create an entirely new universe. Then, partway in, the story doubles. The kids make contact with a group of internet trolls who turn out to be actual horned, gray-skinned aliens from a distant, brutal planet called Alternia. 12 of them. They played their own version of the game in their own doomed session, before the kids ever did. And on Alternia, everyone is born into a rigid caste system sorted by the color of their blood, a hierarchy where the higher your blood ranks, the more power you're simply given, and cruelty toward those beneath you isn't a crime. It's just how the world works. Meet Vriska Serket. Spider motif. The number 8, everywhere. A typing style that swaps letters for 8s mid-sentence. She's a cerulean blood high enough on Alternia's caste ladder to be born with real social power, and she knows it. And her powers are, frankly, terrifying. Vriska is what the story calls the thief of light, and in her case that means 2 things. The first is mind control. She can reach into another person's head and make their body do whatever she wants, and they can't stop her. The second is luck itself. Vriska can steal luck, drain the good fortune out of everyone around her and hoard it, guaranteeing that she personally gets the best possible outcome of any situation. She rolls a massive set of magical 8-sided dice in a fight, and with enough stolen luck, she simply cannot lose. Think about how unfair that is as a power. She doesn't beat you. She rewrites the odds so you are never going to win. Now here's what she does with all of it. And I want to lay this out plainly, because the whole point of Vriska falls apart if you let anyone soften it. As a child, Vriska and her friend Terezi ran elaborate live-action role-playing games. But for Vriska, the game was a cover. She used it to hunt other trolls, and she fed their bodies to her guardian, a monstrous giant spider, to keep it alive. In one of those games, she trapped a gentler troll named Tavros, cornered him with monsters he couldn't fight, and then used her mind control to force him to walk straight off a cliff, paralyzing him from the waist down. Later in the story, after tormenting and toying with him, she kills Tavros outright. When another troll, Iridia, tried to make Vriska answer for what she'd done, Vriska didn't fight her directly. She hijacked the mind of a third troll, a powerful psychic named Soul Lux, and used his abilities, through his own hands, to kill Iridia. Murder by remote control. And Terezi, the closest thing Vriska ever had to a best friend, ends up blind. Fitting for a thief of light, Vriska is tied to the moment Terezi loses her sight entirely, the final wound in a spiral of revenge that Vriska personally sets spinning. That's not the complete list. Vriska is also, in her own words, an apocalypse enthusiast. She builds doomsday devices for fun, and other characters actually come to her to commission them. She lies, manipulates, and gambles with other people's lives as casually as she rolls her dice, and eventually she turns that same manipulation on the human kids, too, treating them like pieces on a board she's decided she's destined to win. She is even the first of the trolls to ascend to the story's godlike, god-tier state, becoming, by her own design, the single luckiest being in the story, incapable of losing a game of chance ever again. Paralysis. Murder. A friend blinded. Manipulation as her default setting. Write those crimes on a page with no context, and you have a clean, obvious villain. Case closed. Except Homestuck refuses to let you close it. Here's what the story forces you to sit with. Vriska didn't grow up in a world where any of this registered as wrong. Remember that monstrous spider she fed other trolls to? That wasn't a pet. On Alternia, every child is raised by a beast, and Vriska's would have died, and by the rules of that bond, taken Vriska with it if she didn't keep bringing it living victims. Picture that. A little girl whose very first lesson in survival is that other people are food, and that hesitation gets her killed. That is not a justification for what she becomes. It is an explanation of it, and the story makes sure you can tell the difference. And underneath all the cruelty, Vriska wants something almost unbearably sympathetic. She wants to matter. She is desperate, genuinely, achingly desperate to be the hero. The one who does the impossible, who wins the game, who saves everyone and finally proves she was special all along. But she was raised to believe there's only one way to become powerful enough to be that hero, to take power, by force, from everyone around her. So every reach for greatness curdles, on contact, into another act of cruelty. She hurts people while chasing the very thing that would have made her good. That's the engine of the whole character. Not evil for evil's sake. A genuinely damaged kid, shaped by a world built to produce monsters, chasing a decent dream with the only tools that world ever handed her. You are never allowed to fully forgive her. You are also never quite allowed to write her off. The story holds your hand on both sides of the argument and refuses to let go of either one. Which brings us to the phrase you will still see stamped across the internet to this day. Vriska did nothing wrong. Now, you just heard the list. She did plenty wrong. So that line is, mostly, a joke, an ironic rallying cry, a way of winking at everyone who takes the debate too seriously. But it survived for over a decade for a reason. It became the flag people plant on a battlefield the fandom itself nicknamed the Vriscourse, the endless, unwinnable war over who Vriska really is. Is she a tragic hero the story keeps punishing unfairly? Or a manipulator the story keeps letting off the hook? Pick a camp and you'll find thousands of people who've been arguing that exact position, in earnest, for years. And here's the part that makes Homestuck genuinely singular. The author knew. Vriska became so central, so magnetic, so divisive, that the comic's own creators started openly playing with the fandom's obsession, folding the arguments about her back into the story itself. Even inserting his own author avatar into the narrative to fixate on her, until the audience's inability to agree on Vriska became part of Vriska's text. She stopped being just a character inside the story. She became a mirror the entire fandom kept standing in front of, seeing something different every time. And think about how rare that actually is. Most characters get sorted, eventually loved or hated, and the discourse moves on. Vriska is loved and hated by the very same people at the very same time for over 10 years and counting. That is not a writing failure. It's the single hardest trick a writer can pull off, a character you cannot resolve. One your gut convicts on the evidence, while some stubborn part of you keeps rising to her defense. And then Homestuck does something almost unheard of with her. Late in the story, Vriska is killed, struck down by Terezi, the friend she helped blind, in a moment the narrative frames as earned. A just death, a closed book. For one quiet second, the argument actually seems settled. Except the story reaches back and rewrites it. Through a literal, in-universe do-over, the narrative bending back on itself to change what already happened, another version of Vriska is pulled into events. And this Vriska gets the one thing the first never could, a real shot at becoming the hero she always swore she'd be, leading the final charge against the story's ultimate evil. By the end, Homestuck is holding two Vriskas at once, one the narrative punished and buried, and one it handed a second chance. And it never fully tells you which one it agreed with. You can read that as cowardice, a story too in love with its most popular character to let her stay dead. Or you can read it as the most honest ending she could possibly get. Because Vriska's entire existence is a refusal to give you one clean answer. Killing her for good would have been the story finally declaring, out loud, she was the villain. Rewriting her instead says something far truer to who she always was. We still can't decide. And after everything you've just heard, neither can you. So, did Vriska do nothing wrong? No, she did a lot wrong. But the reason a cartoon troll has held the internet hostage for more than a decade was never the crimes, and it was never really the meme. It's that Homestuck managed to build a character honest enough to be genuinely both guilty and sympathetic, monster and child, villain and hero, and then had the nerve to hand you the verdict and walk away. People have been trying to deliver it ever since. That's not a flaw in the argument. The argument is the character. And that's one more file back in the vault, though something tells me this one's going to crawl right back out and start another fight in the comments. Go on then. Pick a side. I'll be reading every last one of them. Subscribe and I'll keep digging. I always find something.